Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. You know, I won't lie to you guys about the pressures at times of not just work in general, but my job. And um, I like my job. And sometimes the pressures of my life, and I'm happy in my marriage. And um, I'm sure that my son goes through this as a new husband at this point. But I I tried not to pry too much and instead provide the proper instruction and advice so that neither he nor she is pressure cooked by the marriage without getting too much into their business. I try, but I won't lie to you about these things because um, one, you probably catch me if I lied. I mean, y'all can't read my mind and I can't read yours, but people have various degrees and skill levels of detecting dishonesty. So saying nothing may not tell people anything, but lying causes the most skill to be able to detect it. And so there are times when the pressure gets to be a lot, just like it does for you. We all go through it. I'd like to point out, if I may, that somehow, and I don't fully understand, but somehow um, we get through it. We come out not only unscathed permanently, but we also come out with not much of a memory of how we got through it the last time. But then we don't learn from it. You don't take something that happens negative, I mean, a negative experience specifically. You don't take negative experiences and just not learn from them. If you're going to focus on a negative experience, there's a good reason to do so. And that reason is to focus for the purpose of learning from it so that you can avoid it or help somebody else avoid it. You study negative experiences for the purpose of decreasing them, if not for yourself, then for someone else, but decreasing them somewhere. We're not doing this, and I'm seeing this with Charlie Kirk. When it comes down to these white supremacists, they are not like other people. When it comes down to the Zionists, they're not like other people. They are biologically human. But understand this: a man eating tiger or lion or leopard that has cubs will still be kind and merciful to those cubs. They could be man eaters, they could be savages. They could hate human beings even, and probably for good reason, depending on how they've seen human beings act in the wild. But they don't turn around and massacre their own kids, so their affection for their mates and their mercy, if not outright affection for their own cubs, does not mean that there's something divine about them or sacred per se. Massa Charlie's humanity is in question because of his mindset, not because of his DNA. It doesn't matter if it's Charlie Hebdo or Charlie Kirk. I've been talking about Massa Charlie Wyatt for a long time because of their mindset. Now, I didn't know Charlie Kirk's name until yesterday morning, my time. Pardon me for saying, but I shit you not, I did not know his name. I saw his face. I remembered seeing his face next to somebody on the right side. I don't know. I mean, when I say the right, I mean the political right wing. I couldn't remember who stood next to him in some photograph I saw, but I knew he was part of that crowd, and I didn't know his name, and I figured no big deal. I could remember his face if I saw it again, but he didn't stick out to me. It's just that with that hairline and that strong widow's peak, sometimes and other times that bang he had, he stood out. Then I thought, oh, later on, I saw the name Charlie Kirk and I saw that he'd been popped. And I didn't necessarily celebrate it because whoever did it has not been caught, can't be asked why it is that they did it, and probably didn't do it for you and me. And I honestly don't even know why it is that he was the one put in the crosshairs and not somebody else. Was it a political assassination? Probably so, but why him and not somebody else? I don't know. I really don't. I just know that right now, at this point, we black folks had nothing to do with this, except that it's one less voice being raised against us with a bunch of goddamn lies. And it is perfectly okay for us to sit back and say, okay, it's a minor relief, because in all honesty, it's excuse me, it's not a major relief. He's not he's one voice that got silenced. And the truth be told, I do kind of feel sympathy for his daughters because they're kids. They're just kids. Their children will probably reach an age at which I don't have that sympathy anymore, because, and it will depend on the kind of people they grow up to be. But if his daughters grow up to be what it means politically to be white women, then no, I won't have any more sympathy. I wouldn't have that. They had a dad ripped away from them. And I would say, well, they had a dad ripped away from them that was going to teach them notions of their people's normality, which is blasphemous enough to me. No, the white Western world is not normal. White people are normal on a biological level because they were created that way, but their society is not normal. There's nothing for them to protect except a DNA sequence that's considered to be recessive only because it's one of the newest DNA sequences. That's all that is. The DNA sequence that codes for blue eyes is not dominant over the one that codes for for brown eyes. And it's not their fault. Yeah, their DNA is many of their traits are recessive. Some of them are dominant, but they're not phenotypical ones. And that's not something wrong with them. But they have these insecurities about things that aren't even really a problem for them, unless, of course, they migrate to another climate. And that's really without the benefit of modern technology that both their people and ours have contributed to, and so has everybody else. They have these insecurities for nothing. That is the political meaning of what the hell it means to be white. And that's why it is that when we see people like that, we should keep an eye on them for what they say, because they do have enough of the other world's brains in their hands. So yeah, it does make sense that we would pay attention to what they say. Yeah, sure. But there's no reason for our people to debate about how to react to the news that one of them got clapped. What are we debating about? Especially online where other people can see it. See, I got to school yesterday, and my students started asking me, did you hear about Charlie Kirk? What do you think? And I had to tell them I saw like 2 headlines on the phone as I was getting ready for work, and I don't know more than that. I saw that it was in Utah, and somebody else said something. Somebody else played a clip about him saying that it was probably it's worth it to have a few gun deaths so that people can own weapons. And that's as much as I know. Right wing, so I know what his camp stood for. I don't know much more than that. And that's true because at that time I didn't know. I woke up, he was gone. There were a few headlines about it. I scrolled through some headlines on the phone, didn't open them up because I had to get ready for work, eat breakfast, all that good stuff. So, but one of my students, one of the better English speakers, began to try to question all of this American politics. And he was questioning it from a devil's advocate point of view. You know, well, what if white folks are right? And aren't the gangs mostly black and Mexican? And if you can stereotype the police, then can't the police stereotype? And I had to tell him, I said, listen, you want to debate about the right and the left wing with an American who never left the United States until I was damn near 40. I mean, to live. I visited, but to live away from the U.S. until I was damn near 40. And you want to sit up and debate with me about how I know what to believe in the United States, or at least how I know when someone's lying? No, I don't always know when someone's telling the truth. That point of yours is valid, but I never said I did. But I do know when someone's lying. And I know because of certain things you don't know about. Now, you may want to practice English in debate, and that's fine, but do understand that I have answers to these questions, and they're going to be long. I know about COINTELPRO. And understand this too. If you were going to sit up and say that I should consider the possibility that white folks are telling the truth about all of their experiences, even though we didn't grab them from Europe and drag them to the Americas or to Africa for that matter, then keep this in mind. You are required to believe every goddamn thing that Israel says about Palestine, if what you're saying is true. He asked if I cared at all about just the fact that it was a murder, and I said, of course I care about the fact that it's a murder. If they catch this guy, whatever he is, if they catch him, they're going to do something to him. Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that we black folks are not allowed to sit up and say, hey, he provoked this. That doesn't mean we're not allowed to say this. We could sit back and say this is a free victory for us. A perfectly good crisis to not let go to waste. Your crisis, something convenient for us. And even then, it's not his ideology that got shot and ended. It's just his voice. We don't care that a liar can't tell any more lies. And why do I call him a liar? It's not because everything he said is a lie. It's because even when he told truths, he said true things for false reasons, which is exactly what I have seen Bedouin Arabs do here when they're on that white shit, and what I've seen white folk from the white Western world do all of my life. They'll tell the truth if it's going to still lead you to a false conclusion, because that's one of the devil's tricks. When people want to support the oppressor against the oppressed, that's one of the things they do. They tell true statements for false reasons, and they interrupt anybody that might tell them what the truth is without trying to lead them to a false conclusion. Just like Frank Zanu, the Sambo sellout, does. He disses Africa every chance, not always lying, but telling truths and lies to lead to false conclusions that are lies. You saw with that Haitian American lady he was interviewing. He wouldn't fuck the shuck up to let her answer his questions. Now, when I ask somebody a question, I ask my students questions about English, or if they choose to debate, they usually sit there and look at me, and I'm like, I just ask you a question, say something. I let them ask, I let them answer. My answers to their questions may be long, but I let them ask and I let them answer. This guy was asking and wouldn't let answer because he just wanted to sit up and put his fingers to his temple and his thumb to his chin like he's just so intellectual. But he's a pseudo-intellectual. Ghetto ass nigga. What are the value systems of the African Americans? Um, how much time have you spent around them to even know? Because see, I can tell you the reason I know that a lot of the things we think about Africans were not true is because I took time to hang around them as friends and learn what is true, what is not true, and what changes based on nationality and region. That's how I was able to learn this stuff. I damn near became Atlanta's resident expert in blackness, well, international blackness. What does it mean to be African American? And from which region? What does it mean to be from the continent? What does it mean to be from the eastern part of the continent? What does it mean to be from the Horn? What does it mean to be from the West? I paid attention. I learned. I let them talk. I asked questions about what I didn't know. And I let them know if I ask a dumb question, I don't mean harm. I'm really asking to know. Because I don't want to have to rely on the one that hates you and me for any kind of information. I can't trust them. They will lie. They'll do it on TV, and our dumbasses will believe it. I'll never forget. See, Tarzan movies were filmed in Florida and Louisiana. That's where Tarzan movies were often filmed. I mean the old black and white ones. With Johnny Weissmuller and some of those other actors. They used to come on TV when I was a small child. And I sort of like the idea of the freedom that this jungle man had. I didn't really know much about the racial overtones when I was a small child. I'm talking about, I'd say until about 8. No, actually until about 10. I didn't understand it. I didn't know what were lies about the Africans and what were the truths. And that's the thing about TV, because they try to give you fiction in a realistic manner. You really don't know what's true and what's not until you go and ask people in real life. Charlie Kirk represents an entire world. He represents the white Western world that does not do that. Their governments will sit up and analyze what's true and what's false because their governments, they do it so that they can better misinform the people. He represents that intersection in between their government and their populations, the mass populations that believe the dumb shit. And that's why when he gets to talking, even without a strong southern accent, he gets to talking and you can hear banjo playing in the background, which is one of our musical inventions they asses stole. Soon as he gets to talking, I can hear I can hear that in the background. As soon as he doesn't even have a southern accent. I don't know where he's from. It doesn't matter. That's one of the reasons why he had the profile that he had. He could say the same dumb shit with a very general, non-southern, non-regional specific accent. He didn't sound like a southern redneck or hillbilly with one of the twangs. He didn't sound like that. Sounded like he might have been from Boston and just a damn racist. White Southerners love guys like him because he very intellectually adds credibility to their white supremacist sensibilities. And at times I have to tell some of these folks around here, some of them, not very commonly in larger cities, but in the North, in these villages, there were times that I had to tell some of them, you've been brainwashed. Oh, I'm not dumb enough to be brainwashed. Yeah, you are. Everybody is if they don't know that it's a brainwashing. But I'm telling you, as somebody that lived over there, you bought into that white narrative, and it's some bullshit. At what point are you going to disbelieve in the bullshit that white folks are telling you? They colonized much of the peninsula. They caused the problem that you hear about in Palestine and Israel right now. It's the reason why many Syrians speak French. Lebanese speak French. Many other nationalities speak English as a second language. That's the reason for this. And here your dumbass is acting like white folks in America are shooting black folks because we don't know how to act. And yet, And one thing about these folks here, if you think Arabs always had their shit together, and they don't, but if you think so, they do not cry over their enemies. Now, they may say, he didn't provoke death. They may say that. But they would also say, I'm not finna cry and mourn over that either. We're sitting up debating about whether we should celebrate Charlie Kirk's death or not. We don't have a reason to celebrate when he's dead or alive, because the ideology that made him who he is, the platform on which he stood, has not been ripped apart with bullets or anything else for that matter. This was a very minor convenience for our people, our race, not black Americans only, not any one specific nationality of black people, but for the race. It was a very minor convenience that he can't lie anymore. If he had caught a permanent case of laryngitis, or and that stopped him, or if he can't talk anymore because he lost too much blood from a bullet, either one. And I saw the clip yesterday evening, my time. I saw the clip of his actual death. I think it gave me some bad dreams. I woke up this morning not feeling too good. Not because I sympathize with him, but because of the simple act of violence and all of that blood that was on the screen. His last words on this planet were gang violence. I think he said gang violence or gun violence, or gun violence or gang violence. He was asking if somebody meant that, and before he got a chance to answer, his head snapped back, because that's how fast the bullets go, and that was it. And we sat back and we said, well, we know it wasn't no brothers out there, because this is Utah. Couldn't no brothers manage to hide? If it was any one of us that did pop him, everybody would have beat the snot out of him. So we were sitting up and saying hours before, we know it wasn't one of us that did it. We ain't had nothing to do with this. And sure enough, the FBI had to release a photo of somebody leaving the scene, and in a video of the same guy wearing the same thing leaving the scene, and he surely wasn't black. I'm light-skinned, and I don't look like that dude. I could tell from a black and white photo that guy's paler than I am. And I haven't had an opportunity to just lay out in the sun like I would normally do in the summer. I haven't had opportunities to do that since 2024. My wife intentionally, last weekend, my wife intentionally kept us running errands late in the day so that I couldn't lay out in the sun. And she didn't do it because she thinks dark skin is ugly. She did that because she didn't want me to obsess about it. And that's because she didn't realize that I was doing that to get vitamin D, not so much a tan. We almost had an argument about it. I told her, well, the thing is, I'm still trying to get a shot of vitamin D before it gets a little too cold for that. She said, don't worry about it. I got some at home. And, oh, okay, well, why didn't you say so? But Charlie, I was about to call him Charlie Hebdo. Charlie Kirk sat up here and talked all this stuff and played up the so-called he played up the sanity of the man that stabbed the Ukrainian woman in the Carolinas. He played up that man's sanity. Andrew Tate, with his half-black self, had the nerve to sit up and say that just like Blade didn't trust vampires because he's half vampire, I really don't trust blacks. And I'm like, you dumbass, you don't understand who the vampires were, you stupid fuck. That's why your ass couldn't stay Muslim. Usually when people can't stay Muslim, it's because of their sanity and their intellect that they're lacking, like the guy that stabbed a Ukrainian woman in the Carolinas. His mind is gone. He's a mental patient or a formal mental patient. He's damn sure a mental case. That's why he did it. He thought she was someone else. He was wrong, but he thought she was someone else. They're acting like this is a perfectly sane man that just looked at a white woman with blonde hair and blue eyes and decided to kill her for no goddamn reason. Because she's white with blonde hair and blue eyes and that's it. Hell, if we were going to do something like that, we wouldn't grab a Ukrainian immigrant, even though they're racist as F about half the time. He did it because he had a mental episode. Some of these mental patients with schizophrenia and paranoia, they'll do this to anybody. I remember the weekend I got married. In Atlanta, there was a guy who stopped. He was a Muslim brother. He stopped and gave a ride to a mental patient, and then he turned up missing. He was gone. The mental patient actually drove himself in the same van that the Muslim brother stopped and gave him a ride in. He drove the van to a police station and turned the van in with a lot of blood on it. A lot of blood was inside the van. And he didn't even have a memory of himself killing the Muslim brother that offered him a ride. They kept him in custody because of the blood. Then they found the Muslim brother's body later on. I remember that because the Muslim guy, some people thought that it had been me. Some of them heard that I was the one who's missing, and then later on the body was found. I had to stand up in one of the masajid and say, listen, some of y'all thought it was me. I'm just letting you know, you're seeing me right now, but it's not me. And my heart goes out to the family that lost their loved one. But because of the confusion about that, it's not me. I remember that. I'm mentioning this because that's a mental patient. The guy that did this to him doesn't even remember doing it. At least last I heard. That's why he drove the van. I mean, when he snapped out of that stuff, he was in the van by himself with the guy's blood in there. He didn't even remember where he had drugged the body and left it. He couldn't help the police find the guy he killed if he wanted to, from what I heard. When he snapped out of it, he was sitting in the van with a bunch of blood and the driver gone. That's a mental patient. Massa Charlie sat up there like a bunch of others and tried to make it seem like this was a racial act and it was race war worthy. That's what they're trying to make it seem like. And he knew damn well this dude was crazy. But he just kept talking. And Andrew Tate, who actually left Islam because of mental deficiency and not because of actual insanity, sat up and took the white supremacist path. That's why he and Sneeko ain't cool no more. And it's a good thing, actually, for us, because Tate had no place. He was already not going to be Muslim as soon as he believed in racial inequality, but on the basis of race. I believe it on the basis of culture. It's not really on the basis of race. That's why I don't look at the Eastern Europeans, most of the time they're Muslim anyway, and say, you low-life rat bastard, subhuman inferior. I don't say this to them. You know why? Because they don't act like it. The Serbians do. The Romanians do. The Albanians don't. That's part of the reason I said that Islam was a solution for black folk. Eastern European Muslims, even if they want to remain white, don't blame somebody who marries someone else. They don't walk around with that. Eastern European Christians are like, nope, we are in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, we're white. Just like you Western Europeans. They're trying so hard to get there. Their minds are not the same. But I tell you the stuff that I tell you about them because, like Andrew Tate, I'm not recognizable to many of us as one of us. But I understand where the aggression actually comes from. The bloodthirst is not something I got from my black ancestors. I don't even think I got it from the German ancestor that I have. He was more pro-black than any one of the black women that he married, and he married 4 of them. He was the one that did not disown his kids or his grandkids for their blackness. He didn't do it. The French, I bet you money, I got some of my aggression from them. I would call it bloodlust, but I don't actually like the sight of blood that much. I don't like the smell of too much blood at one time. But that aggression in me, I'm very sure would have come from some of them, because they're nasty. That's why they're doing what they're doing in West Africa. And that's why as soon as that living standard dropped in France, the French started rioting, because instead of sitting up and saying, well, this is what it takes to not oppress the people in Africa, they're starting to say to the government, no, you do whatever the hell you got to do to get us back to where we were before. You get back in there and you take it away from those niggas and give it to us. Or we'll overthrow you. Because that's who the French are. They're some of the most obstinate. That's why it was that they repelled the Muslims at the Pyrenees. It wasn't because of freedom or anything of that nature. They did it because they were stubborn. That's why in Spain, people bathed, had street lights, public health care, libraries, fountains, stuff like that. And you went into France back at the same time. Descend from the Pyrenees and go into France at the same time, and people stank because they weren't bathing most of the year. Life was miserable in France at the same time people were thriving in Spain at that point. It was so bad that every winter, wolves would descend into some of these cities, even into Paris, to pick people off. Because the conditions there were so bad that they were about the same as being homeless in California today. By the way, the homeless are being predated upon by predators in California. They're trying to figure out what the hell kind of species it is. They know it ain't bears, they know it ain't mountain lions, and it ain't wolves. So what the hell is it? That's another talk for another day. But you know, Charlie sat up and twisted everything around to suit the narrative. He lied about certain crime stats, and he probably believed them himself. But he was doing it to spread the narrative that we're just dangerous to everybody. We're dangerous to ourselves. We're dangerous to them. When the fact is that poor people in general tend to be dangerous if you show them that they're selected and singled out to be impoverished. That's when people become dangerous. In poor countries, people are not necessarily that dangerous because many people around them are poor. They're not singled out for impoverishment. You take black folks, single them out for the highest levels of impoverishment, and show them that everybody else can make it except you, and then black folks do the same thing everyone else does, and it doesn't help. And you're going to sit up there and say, why are they so dangerous? Damn, bitch, you just showed them that you'll never pay them the same to do the same damn work. Effing right, they'll be dangerous. I was never dangerous to black folks growing up until I began to realize that some of them were singling me out for mistreatment. And that was when I became dangerous, and I still don't regret it. I don't regret punching a single one of the black men that I punched growing up because they singled me out for mistreatment. And I told them, I don't care what reasons you have. You didn't even realize you were singling me out. It doesn't matter. You were not as afraid of me as you were of these people you backed down to and declined to fight when they challenged you. And that's why I swung on you. And the next time you fight back, I'll kill you. And I meant it from the bottom of my black heart and the depths of my black mind. And I never had to fight one of those guys again. Pretty much saying to them, you are going to get hurt until you learn to back down to me the same way you back down to this dude that's bigger than me. That's what it's going to be. And I don't regret that even up until now. I understand when you single someone out for a mistreatment, that makes them dangerous. And this is a subconscious thing. They didn't consciously realize what they were doing. And most people to whom it is done don't consciously realize that's why they're flashing out. Charlie Kirk singled us out, singled out Muslims. and then singled out white folks as some sort of examples of civilization and civility until one of his own, racially speaking, popped his butt. I don't care what, I don't know what party that person belongs to. I don't fivaguck. What I care about is that you and I do not get bothered by this in the least bit. That's what I care about. I don't want to see us arguing and debating over how to react to this. The best thing for us to do would be to simply say nothing, at least in front of other people. Oh, he gone. Well, that's one less liar to worry about, but the ideology still exists. Doesn't matter if he's really, to us, doesn't truly matter if he's alive or dead per se. We don't miss him. But it doesn't really matter if he's alive or dead because it's going to be another one. We should be sitting back and analyzing the inconsistencies in the right wing anyway. And why Trump would sit up and order flags flown at half-mast for this guy, but not for the congresswoman that was popped from Minnesota. She was a Democrat. We don't fivaguck about neither one of them parties. If you're really black and aware, you don't really care about the parties per se, but you understand the inconsistencies of the right-wingers. And that's why the features is going after the right, the white and white-adjacent Muslims, so-called Muslims, self-called Muslims, that are trying to call Muslims to go into the alt-right. It's the features calling it punk. He's doing a better job than I could. He's calling they punk asses out. And the Muslims should be doing, no matter what race a Muslim is, he should also be saying the same thing. It don't make no bit of difference. What do you think about him dying? Well, apparently his time was up. That's what death means. It means God gave you a particular length of time and you have now lived that last bit of time. That's what it means. Same as when I die, same as when you die. Well, do you feel the least bit bad? No, we don't miss him. We don't cry over enemies. We didn't do it. So we ain't got much to do with it. The ideology he represents that made him really inconvenient for us is still around. So we still got work to do. That's what the hell this means. My life goes on until God ends it too. That would have been the proper answer for Muslims. Muslims are sitting there getting caught up in all of the speculation. No, we don't need to do that. Let's examine what we do know so we remember that. That's how you take these negative situations that we go through in our personal lives and publicly, and you learn from them so that the next time something like this happens, we don't get caught up in stupid ass debates. I'm not upset about him living or dying. I don't care. Nobody amongst us really gets affected by that per se, except that we got caught up in a stupid ass debate, and life's all the same problems we had in life before are going to be there afterwards. And all of the problems that are caused because of the rhetoric of guys like him will still be there. Every job opportunity you couldn't get, still be there. Those doors are still closed for the same reasons. Maybe even more will be closed because of retaliation. Because what they've really done that we need to pay attention to is that they have built a psychological climate in many parts of the world in which whenever we get these minor conveniences like someone like him not being able to lie anymore, they always retaliate in ways and then and nothing happens to them. When Obama was reelected, I lost the one good job I had in the United States as an adult. The one good job, and I lost it. I remember the election was announced on a Thursday. Wednesday or Thursday. The following Tuesday, my black ass was in a room with 11 other employees, northern whites and black employees, being told somebody's got to be sent home, so y'all go home and just wait for the next assignment, which never came. And a friend of mine got with a friend of his to find out what the real secret reasons were that I was let go. And it was because I had to go to the airport 2 hours early, which never affected the job performance, by the way. because there was another guy with my name who was on the watch list. And also because when they told their nigger jokes, I fought back. Okay, we're going to tell racial jokes. Okay, I would do the same. I didn't let them crack their darky jokes about the other African American guy from the same state that was working with us. Now they were doing it as jokes, fine. It's just I would joke back. If we're joking, we're joking. But yeah, now there was no proof of this, but I was still told that's what it was. And a friend of mine had found this out through a friend of his. He wound up getting fired a few days later. That is the climate that they create. If I went back to the States, I would face this again because I'm not going to stop fighting back. And the way I got that job was that on the EEOC page of the job application, I did not fill out anything about race. I ran an experiment and I got paid more at that job than I would ever been paid before or since. That's the climate they make. That's the civilization they create. They're able to do this at both the systemic and the cultural levels so that whenever one fails, the other one still manages to maintain white supremacy. And the Supreme Court has already pretty much ruled that it takes absolute proof. You sue somebody for job discrimination, that's no longer under the preponderance of evidence rules for civil suits, where you don't really have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt like you do in a criminal case. Oh no, now you got to prove this civil case like a criminal case beyond a reasonable doubt. In other words, you got to damn near have a confession by the discriminator that they were discriminating against you on the basis of race before you got a case. Imagine that shit. Supreme Court ruling. Hold on, don't take my word for it. Michelle Alexander, the author of the new Jim Crow, said that. That's what Charlie Kirk represents. Why are we sitting there talking about, well, you know, they didn't have to shoot it. They didn't have to, but they did. Whoever they were, they did. It wasn't us. Fuck the shuck up. You still got to worry about the platform that's going to produce another one of him. It ain't over. And one of the reasons why it is that certain conservative elements among them are willing to really feed into this division between black nationalities, by the way, it's not because of reparations. They want to limit the amount of reparations they pay, if they're going to pay it at all, and they don't believe in that anyway. They're the main ones that don't believe in reparations, by the way. White right-wing Republicans are the last ones to believe in reparations. Don't forget that. How do you know? When they flip the script and start talking like, well, maybe it's not such a bad idea, remember that you can usually tell where they were just a while ago by the non-white but yet white adjacent minorities that are also Republicans, including many non-black Muslims. It takes them a while to catch up because they're following behind Massa. Yeah, and they don't believe in reparations. Because just a few years ago, their masses didn't believe in reparations. I didn't say their masses, I said their massas, their masters did not believe in reparations. So it's going to take a while for them to catch up. Charlie Kirk, I don't have to ask you what he said about reparations if he ever said anything at all. I know what he actually believed. He actually believed that there should be no reparations. He denied what was going on in Gaza. No, they're massively starving people out in Gaza. But he denied that that was even happening. He wanted to act like there is no Palestine. Palestinians don't exist. Okay, well, now he doesn't exist. He said it was okay to have a certain amount of people dying every year so that you could have a Second Amendment. It may be something that's unavoidable, but he said it's okay. That's the difference. Well, now he's one of those that had to give his blood for what he said he believed in. So that people have the right to maintain possession of their weapons, which is a right in which I believe too. He had to give his blood because he said that was the cost. And we're supposed to sit up and argue about whether or not to mourn? No, we're not to mourn. There ain't much of a cause to celebrate, but there's damn sure no cause to mourn. If you're a Muslim, you don't have a cause to mourn. If you're a Muslim, black or not, if you're a Muslim and you think this is a cause to mourn, you either don't know who Charlie Kirk is or you don't fivaguk, and therefore you really ain't Muslim. Because understand, white supremacy is not compatible with Islam as a religion. Not even on the subconscious level. That's why Tate couldn't stay Muslim. Some of you say, well, you're not really saying a whole lot about Charlie Kirk, Jet Black. Yeah, because it's really not about him as an individual. Screw him. Damn him. I mean, you saw how he died. We Muslims know what he died on anyway. So when I say damn him, that's literally coming out of what it is that we expect to happen to him because of what he died on. And you don't have to be as bad as him for that to happen to you. But the issue I'm getting at here is that I'm not talking a whole lot about just him, because the real issue is bigger than him. And this is what I want Muslims to understand if you're really going to be Muslim, and what I want black folks to understand if you're really going to be black. I want oppressed people on the planet to understand this. If you're not going to be an oppressor, we ain't got to celebrate. It's not enough of a cause to celebrate. We're not inhuman if we were to celebrate per se. That wouldn't ruin our humanity. I'm dead serious about one thing. Mourning his death is worse than celebrating it, but neither one is really justified. The difference is that the cause for celebration is insufficient. The cause for mourning is non-existent. It's in the negative. I'm not with Jeff St. James on one thing. If we did celebrate this motherfucker's death, it would make us inhuman. It would make us actually very human. Yeah, white folk will sit up and celebrate when they lynch black folks, and they were subhuman, rat bastard savages, inferiors for that. But that's because they were the oppressors. We're not. They were doing the killing and celebrating. We didn't have nothing to do with this. We just sat back and watched the trash take itself out. And I'm not just calling him trash, which is okay to do, but I'm really not calling him trash per se, even though I'm not against someone else doing it. What I'm talking about is his whole platform was trash. That right wing is trash. You don't need me to tell you the left wing is because of moral behaviors or immoral behaviors per se, but I'm telling you that right wing is trash because they are in favor of oppression as long as the paler oppress the darker. You got people on the far left and they don't think that what's going on in Gaza is humane at all. And you got people on the far right who want to sit up and say either it doesn't exist, it's not really happening, or they want to justify it, but they don't condemn it. Bro, that's inhumane. That's what people's humanity is in question. And not only that, but Charlie Kirk, shout out to Neferkar Dessalines for making us aware of this. Charlie Kirk sat up and said, Libya, give us your oil. He said that when he was a teenager. 14 years back. He'd have been 17 at the time. Here's the issue. Apparently you could scroll back and still see that dumb shit. Nigga, what? Wait. Charlie Kirk said this. Never took that down later on as he got older and matured. That means the nigga never matured. He just got older. And just like Frank Zanu, an elder who never got any wisdom with his age, Charlie Kirk, as a right-winger, was showing that he did not get any wisdom with his age either. Libya, give us your oil? Shut the fuck up. 17 years old is old enough to know right from wrong. Yes, it is. Even if the brain's still developing, it's old enough to know right from wrong. That's why 14-year-olds get tried as adults sometimes for some of the most serious crimes. Sometimes even if they're white, damn sure if they're black. I've always upheld that by the time someone's 17, they know right from wrong, because puberty is when the moral center of the brain really does fully develop. Experience may not be there, but morality is solidified before that age. You know your ass is wrong. That's why I sit up and say that a bully that has reached puberty should be executed. And I mean real bullies, not the ones that just say stuff about people. But if they actually threaten somebody, they threaten harm, or they actually physically harm someone, get proof they did it, but then take their little asses out. He's 15. He got pubic hair. Chop chop. Because the human population doesn't need him. It's right-wingers that tend to think that, well, you know, bullies serve an evolutionary purpose. Yeah, they show us they show us devolution, degeneracy. Take their asses out. The only ones that are just as bad as him are the ones who don't really bully people, but they think that the bully's right. And Charlie Kirk was one of them. He's not the only one. I told you that's a psychosis. It's a mass psychosis. So whether he's gone or still traveling around and preaching his white supremacy, false religion, false God, that demonic faith, the new Satanism, or whichever one is the case, we're still facing the same thing, and I don't see why we're debating about this. I'm not really talking so much about him, because the real issue for us is why the F we are small-minded enough to debate this sort of thing in the first place, and we ain't even had nothing to do with it. It's not even a question as to whether this was one of us. It was not. So what are we debating about? We don't debate about it or mourn, per se, when gangbangers get clipped. Because they're gangbangers. Drug dealers. Even if they're not violent, and they just wind up dying a violent death while they themselves were not violent, they were just selling drugs, are not the ones we mourn. Regardless of what race they were, we don't even hear about it. It doesn't make it across our desk, so to speak. It's not up on the radar. Okay, fine. So this is one of those that should not have been up on our radar, let alone for us to debate about. That's really what I'm talking about here. What are we debating about? The issues, the racial issues are still the same. The class issues are still the same. White supremacy as a false, blasphemous, satanic religion on a worldwide scale is still the same. And if you are Muslim, whatever your race, if you are Muslim and you're willing to sit up here and humanize Charlie Kirk to get people to mourn his death when that's not even a requirement of us, I now doubt you. I'm calling your faith into question for that too. I already call it into question if you entertain white supremacist ideas. Entertain the notion that the white Western world is even a normal human society, and I'm calling your faith into question because that's blasphemous. Because you call yourselves Muslim and you sit up here and justify the white Western world for doing the same goddamn things you would be okay with a race war against black people if we did. And yet we never did. And you don't even realize it half the time. That's why C.L. Edwards, shout out to him, and Bilal of the Features, and Runaway Slave, and Abdullah on their channels go after your butts. That's the real reason I open this up. Pretty much taking damn near an hour on this Jet Black Air flight to tell you stop even debating about this shit. Pardon my French. And I called it French for a reason. It's time we have a more unapologetic attitude about these white supremacists and these demons and these devils. If the French are in such dire straits that they start learning other languages with their accents so that they're not identifiable as French because the French are associated with slavery in Europe, good. They deserve that for what they did to Haiti alone. And I don't have a special affection or antipathy towards Haiti. I'm very neutral about Haitian individuals. But I will say that their history, though I would not replicate that because of certain other things, their history is one of revolution and rebellion. They do fight back. They had to be warned the F out to stop doing that. I got to get that to them. But then Haitians themselves have said that when Haitian professors went into Africa, they felt like they were superior. That's not okay. But I mention them because just for what the French alone did to Haiti, they deserve this, let alone what they did to Francophone Africa. Even the North, even what they did in Algeria and Morocco was bad enough, let alone what they did to our ancestors, the actual black ones. I've seen the shape that Morocco was in. Yeah, if the French did that. So we need to have a bit more of a militant attitude against people that commit oppression in general. Not just when a black person oppresses somebody. No, but when people commit oppression in general, and you will find that you will very rarely have to actually have an antipathy towards somebody black. You will have to, but it won't be very common if you start to take on that attitude. And some say, well, you don't get to say nothing because you worship the pale Arab. No, I don't worship any Arab, dark, pale, or anything else. I don't worship any human being or other species or planets, stars for that matter. I don't worship any of these things. I'm not the best worshiper. I think I'm a terrible worshiper, but I only worship the one who created it all and owns us all. And I mean it when I say that I don't even worship the white man. That's more than I can say for many Muslims who don't realize that they do. They're not doing it intentionally or consciously, but they're doing it. And that calls into question whether or not we can call them Muslim. I say we can't. But the point I'm making is that I'm not sitting up here telling you this and I'm some kind of hypocrite because I pray in Arabic 5 times a day. No, that's not the case. Because see, while some people think that we also don't have an anti-oppressor mindset, that is very untrue. I mean, many Muslims around the world don't have it, but it is a part of the faith. Yes, it is a part of the faith. How do you know? Go and listen to the speeches of Abdul Hakim Quick, brother from Boston, living in Canada and South Africa. Scholar, real scholar. Go listen to him. He will start many of his lectures off and he will say, and there is no animosity except against the oppressor. This is a very common refrain, actually, a very common opening in speeches when Muslim scholars are going to give a public address to a crowd and teach a lesson. It is in our faith to hate the oppressor and to oppose them and not to side with the oppressor against the oppressed. If the oppressed are pathological and ain't worth 2 dimes with $100 in their pockets, we still do not participate in their oppression. I never told you that Palestinian people are saintly. Never said that. Do we participate in their oppression? Do we even so much as support their oppression? Hell no. Black folks that are sick of Arabs don't sit up and say, well, they deserve it. That's not something we say. We just question how much of an alliance we can effectively have with them because of their anti-black attitudes. That's what we do. I hope that this helps you all to put it in perspective. I've been going for about an hour now, so I'm sorry for taking so long on this Jet Black Air flight, but we thank you for flying with us again here on Jet Black Air, where the phrase Jet Black is also a verb. As always, black call, black mind, blackout, assalamu alaikum, black heterosexual, non-select male power because they don't like it, a black patriarch until extinction or judgment day. Keep jetting black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender, justice, forever.